Welcome to Life in the Music Business, a masterclass with Professor Pooch and your host, BACEFACE.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Here today, you are joined by Professor Pooch and Johnny BACEFACE Ayoub. Today, Pooch, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine, as usual. It's what I call my life is, well, I try to make it be, it's always chaos, but I try to keep it as organized chaos. You know what I mean? So if it's organized, it's okay. I learned to make lists because otherwise I'm all over the damn place. And oh, geez, because I'll get 30,000 other ideas. Oh, here's a helpful hint for people that I found very useful. It's great for songwriting when you're writing songs or doing anything like that. I just let a recorder run. I have this little stupid recorder on my computer. I work from a desktop always. And I work from a microphone. Yeah, you can see it, one of them. You see another one back there. It's a broadcast mic. But this mic, and I just, when I start writing or something, I don't know, I might, with my ADD, I'll just start going on a song and I'll go to a midpoint, maybe an hour later, and oh God, the part I did at the very beginning would have fit. Well, I'm going to have it on tape. I just set, yeah, I still use the word tape. Everybody still does, I guess. But I just set the recorder for 5 hours and just let it run. It's a 2-track recorder on my computer. And in case I forget what I was doing, I got it. So if I'm playing the guitar, the keys, or just talking, or I get some ideas, I could yell it from any place in this room. And this room is pretty big. It goes much wider than it looks. Wow. So yeah, but organized chaos, I try to keep it somewhat organized because, life's crazy enough as it is. I mean, we're recording this during the virus.
During these times especially, it's super difficult for a lot of people to, one, adjust, and two, just be able to live their normal life.
Well, there is no, all right, folks, let's face a fact. You can't hide from it.
Yeah.
The normal everybody was used to does not exist anymore and will never exist anymore. Things are already changing permanently, like people ordering things more than going to a store. A lot of that's going to stay. A lot of different things. These home concerts, they're going to continue even when there's live concerts. I think it's a great idea, why not, midweek, or you do like, a Facebook Watch or an Instagram Live or this or that or whatever, and you have fun with it, and just do your thing, stay visible. There's 10 gazillion artists out there, you got to stay visible.
Yeah, totally agreed. Especially nowadays, I've been seeing some headlines about not spamming your fans, but actually building fans and with the actual fan base. You know what I mean? Growing super fans and people that will actually pay you for what you do as a creative every year.
And there's fans that will pay you, folks. They're thrilled, to have a chance to see you. They're stuck inside, just like a lot of other people are, I'm in different parts of the country right now where people are still stuck inside. I've been hibernating since March, basically. Luckily, this is my office, my music, my life. We shoot videos. We can do anything here, So I'm lucky with that. Some people do have problems not being able to get out. But yeah, you have to engage with your fans. Your fans are going through what you're going through, in their own way. They might not be musicians. At the same point in time, you might be the bright point of their day, by, hey, I'll play you a song for a few minutes or something,
And the live stream really makes it like an intimate experience. So like you feel like you're there with your favorite artist, and it's really like, you know what I mean? It's really opened the doors for a lot of different things. Like Live Nation, I know has been doing well because of this. I mean, they own almost every venue in the entire country. And with this virus, you can't.
They lost 98% of their money in the second quarter.
Yeah, there you go. That's a big deal right there for a company that large. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but they're going to try to get in on something else. Look, things aren't going to go back to the normal we know from the past, but there's going to be the new normal. And my thing to people is, you have some control over your new normal
Of course.
by but people don't realize that, too many people sit back and go with the flow. Well, if you sit back and go with the flow, there's going to be people flying past you with something. You got to, keep creating, get ready, because what's going to happen is all of a sudden they're going to be opening places and you're not going to be ready, but there's somebody else that is. So you got to be creating, setting your shows, doing live streams, getting fans still, through different ways, whether no matter how you're doing it, and yeah, like you said before, I believe that, be careful with spamming and stuff. You need real fans.
The crazy thing is that everybody's trying to put out great music, or everybody's just trying to put out music to satisfy everybody else. And even it's hard to really determine what needs to be done, especially when like the CEO of Spotify is saying that, whoops, we're not going to pay you more. You just need to release more music.
Yeah. Oh man, boy, talk about a put down of people. You know what I mean? Yeah. What's happening real quickly on the legal front, because I have to follow that too. Yeah. Spotify is trying to get the money lowered, what they have to pay, after there was some things happening where I'm talking to people talk, but things happening where the money was raised that they'd have to pay, and they're in court trying to lower it down. The only ones aren't fighting it, by the way, is Apple. Apple is going a little more with the artist and not in the lawsuit. They're not part of this lawsuit.
They're like the biggest company in the entire world. I mean, you see that logo, a 2-year-old baby would be able to determine that was an Apple. It's like
well, what happened was, before the virus, they were worth $1 trillion, and now they're worth $2 trillion. There are people that did very well during the virus, mostly the big corporations, while a lot of people have been out of work, not making any money, but big businesses sure profited in different ways. They gained, what was it, like $56 billion. Yeah, my thing is, I want to be happy. I want other people to be happy. And you want to be doing things you like to do. And yeah, you have to earn a living. It's a way of life. So you earn a living, but you don't have to be billionaires. If you're making money and paying the bills and don't have to work at McDonald's all week, I would take that. And, I tell people this, oh, I don't want to work at it. Well, you need to work at your music, because you can either work at your music and become successful, or get paid and work for somebody else, and you're making their dreams come true instead of your dreams coming true.
Understood.
Nowadays, you're indie. If you were with the major label, you have to put out stuff on their timetable, unless you're a super duper duper star. You have to put it out on their timetable. We're here. People say to me, Pooch, I just got this, I'm ready to put out this EP and stuff. And we just got this brand new song that we wish we could put out, but we can't. And I say to them, well, look, put out the EP and then wait a couple weeks and then put out this, or add a bonus track, because like people will say, well, how should I release stuff? How should I release stuff? And it's up to you, because if you're an indie, you could do what you want. That's why I want people to own their own publishing companies and their own record companies. And you're not controlled by anybody. Like an example would be, okay, you don't have to wait till a whole album's done. Put out a single. Put out another single a month later. And then if it gets 6 or 7 or 10, if you want to do a whole LP, a whole album. And at that point in time, put them all together, and then add a couple bonus tracks and sell it as an album.
Yeah, 100%. That's the smartest way to do it nowadays, because you give each song an opportunity to be heard.
Exactly. And I mean, that's a good point. Push each song,
Yeah, they say the lifespan of a record is about 6 weeks. So there's a lot of independent people, like some major rappers. We don't need to really go into names, but I mean, like the big people that were independent, they were releasing a song every single week, and they built up their whole bank to $1 million through DistroKid and all this great stuff through their music. But that also gave false expectations for other people, thinking that they could do the same exact thing because it's already been done.
You have to do the best thing for you. And you don't know if something works till you try it. You know, you got to not be afraid of making mistakes. You know, if you don't make mistakes, you're not going to get any place. So you make a mistake. Oh, this doesn't work. Okay, change course a little and we'll try something else. But, you know, there's also, I mean, there's exceptions to every rule. Do you know how many songs were put out? Nothing happened. A year later, all of a sudden, some jockey or somebody puts it out on a station and it blows up. You know, I mean, you just never know. I mean, the music industry's very funny. Even the major labels, when they try to say, oh, this is going to be a hit, they don't always know if it's going to be a hit.
You know, the cool thing for the labels, at least, is that when you own multiple medias, like the different forms of media, you're able to control the overall consensus of everybody's opinion. By you putting out the content. So like I always see with the major artists, like they're always posted on the #1 blogs. They have usually there's some type of like a publicity stunt that happens before an album comes out or something. You know what I mean? Like they have big money behind it.
Yeah, big money and connections, and they own a bunch of different companies. One of the things I always like to do is, see, to me, and we're going to be discussing this, music, it's not music just by itself, it's multimedia, and there's film and video and stuff. I mean, you got to get involved with. But I always like to do this, is that there's exact correlations, you know, between the roles. You have like a screenwriter with film, and you have a songwriter with, you know, with music. Yeah, you have a videographer, somebody shooting this stuff. You know, you might have a director, but a lot of this stuff equates. You know, you have an editor. All right, you have a mix engineer. I mean, a lot of it equates. But the funny part is, when you go down this video film thing and you go down it, and eventually, after you hit everything from the executive producer to the record company, whoever owns it, you'll find out a lot of what the majors, they're owned by the same company.
Of
like
course.
Sony has film, Sony has music, Universal, you know.
And that goes back to the Telecommunications Act of 1996. I believe that was when all the mergers were allowed to start happening. You were allowed to own you were allowed to own media across different platforms. Like if you owned a radio station before 1996, you couldn't also own a record label or a film production company or anything along those lines. It was illegal. But I believe when Bill Clinton went into office, he signed the Telecommunications Act of 1996. You can look it up, and it says exactly that they're allowed to cross-own multiple forms of media.
Yep. And by the way, you can go to professorpooch.com, my site, go in the free library. It's a tab to the right. I guess this is your right. I don't know, whatever. The tab to the right at the top, free library. And if you go down, there's an article I wrote of uniting the music and film people together. And it gives a listing and exact correlations of every role leading down to the major owning both of them. Yeah, you're right. They can do that. It gets into what is known as monopolies. Now they're talking about breaking them up after Amazon owns most of the world.
Yeah, I was going to say, they started off, I mean, they were smart, though. Jeff Bezos was smart for starting off with an individual niche and then from there conquering market by market. I mean, he played the long game in that, and he won.
Yeah, the only problem is, and we won't go heavy into it, yeah, he went into it by the customer. He only cared about the customer, which is fine. You want to be cared about. You want, you know, to me, good customer relations is very, very important. And that's important to me when I deal with the company and stuff. At the same point in time, the customers are really benefiting from Amazon, but the workers are suffering. So, I mean, you know.
Yeah, how funny is that one?
Yeah, I mean, during this virus, I mean, we don't have to go heavy into this, but yeah, a lot of the workers are bearing the brunt on this. They're timed, bathroom times, to move this time to this time to that time. There's a lot of people complain about that. But that's big business, folks. Big business owns the world right now, including the politicians. And we're not going to go heavy into that stuff, but that's another story.
I mean, the one thing I was gonna bring up too is that a lot of the stuff that you see in the world, it's like a lot of people set barriers for themselves and all these things until they see somebody else basically break that barrier, and then they understand that it's possible. They're able to do it. For example, you could look this up as well. Roger Bannister, 1954. He was the first person to ever run a mile in less than 4 minutes. It was like 3 minutes and 54 seconds or something along those lines. But before that, nobody had believed it was ever possible. So then after that was done, there was thousands of high school kids and all different walks of life that did the same thing because they knew it was possible. And that's the thing that I feel like people get stuck on a lot nowadays is
you're right. You know, there's always the first person, first person who believes they can do it and just does it. The funny part of you bringing that up, I'm working with an artist, and the band's name is Bannister Effect, and it's all about they got it from Bannister breaking the record, and then 1,000 people after that do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny you brought that up.
That's actually it's so interesting that happens. I mean, like, we're both Aries, so that usually happens a lot with us. Like, you know what I mean?
We're crazy. Yeah. Well, Aries are known for being rams head first, and yeah, we screw up sometimes.
It gets me in trouble.
Yeah, but you don't get anywhere if you're afraid of making mistakes or something. Now, with the running in a mile, he just made it happen. And then all of a sudden people could start, oh, wait a minute, maybe it is possible, because everybody was saying, oh, it's impossible. Nobody would ever break, the 4-minute mile. I was that way. I was a runner back then, and I ain't doing the 4-minute mile.
Right.
I never got close.
That's a hard one right there, like.
Oh, it was hard. I mean, I forget my fastest time. We're talking another life ago. Well, I was in high school. I ran cross country. I ran track and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't look it, but I was heavy into athletics, except I couldn't grow tall enough for a lot of athletics. And also, I can't gain weight. I'm one of those odd people that can't gain weight, and it has its good points and a bad point. People say, Pooch, you're so damn lucky. You don't have to worry about getting fat. I said, wait till winter time. You're going to be happy you had those few extra pounds. Right. I'm freezing. I hibernate in the winter.
I gain all the weight, Pooch.
See, shame you can't do a transfer for people who need weight.
Oh, man, that would be an interesting concept. You know what I mean? Like, here, I got an extra 15 pounds. I'm just trying to get off me. Can you?
Hey, anybody want a few extra pounds?
Place. One day.
Yeah, but you're so right. You can't, the people that are willing to dare and take a risk are the ones that are going to be out there first. Because, I mean, I used to see it used to drive me crazy. It still happens. If there's somebody big happening, I remember when Madonna came out, the record companies at that point in time try to get everybody that sounded like Madonna. When Kurt Cobain and, came out, they came out of the Seattle scene. All of a sudden, the record companies are signing every band from Seattle. I mean, it goes back to Bessie Smith in the 40s or 30s, whatever. They were trying to get every black woman who sang like Bessie Smith, whose name was Smith. And believe it or not, it's true. They would do that. I mean, the record companies, but that's why they're always 10 years behind. But there are people getting signed off of TikTok, and there are a lot of artists and major labels trying to work deals with these people to do these memes and different things on TikTok, because there are people getting signed off of it. It's also helping sales of recordings. This stuff could be looked up, Yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
but there's fake numbers on Spotify and stuff. I mean, Germany they just sued 5 companies with the fake streams and stuff like that. And people think you can buy these streams. Folks, the streams, the numbers look good, but they're not real fans. They're not going to be there long. It could be somebody on the moon, and they're not real fans. They're just numbers. You want real fans,
Understood. Exactly. It's so interesting to see how the platforms just pop up and kind of just take like the number one spot for a certain amount of time. Because I mean, it all goes back to the mergers of multiple apps, Musical.ly, Vine. I mean, it's a whole combination of everything. But it's so interesting to me how people just especially over the quarantine, have like started from the beginning of quarantine without any notoriety or anything along those lines. Then by the end of the quarantine or where we're at right now, I mean, they have hundreds of millions of likes. They're getting paid thousands for promotion. I mean, it's like a whole new world out here.
Yeah, and now there are people trying to imitate them. I mean, Instagram, for example, put out a thing called Reels, but I don't think it's catching on. I haven't heard much about it, but they're trying to compete with TikTok. Now, who knows, except they have one advantage in the United States in that they're not being asked to leave the country, with TikTok, as we were discussing before, with TikTok, I mean, Trump's, president is trying to, get kicked them out of the country, but he's going to let an American country, an American company, I think Microsoft, a couple other people are interested in buying them. Who is it? Walmart's the latest one is into trying to buy them. Who knows? That way they can Americanize it. And it all has to do with because, see, they gather info. And they're afraid the Chinese who own TikTok, well, they don't own it, but their people own it. And and what happens is they have to report, supposedly. They have to report to China all this information and stuff like that. And they're worried that they're going to steal people from the United States' information about, that's what they're doing. It's an information buying thing. It's used for advertising. And that's how, it's all about advertising money and things like that. It gets really, really crazy.
Yeah, and kind of like to stream off that a little bit, it's kind of, we could talk about this just like in light talk, but I mean, it's crazy. Like even nowadays, people believe that the computer is so safe and all this stuff. I mean, any website you go to automatically puts cookies on your computer to be able to understand your patterns. So, I mean, it's like, you have to really be careful, like the technology in the cloud and all this stuff, like just because it says it's in the cloud, it's really on somebody's computer down the line. So it's like, you always have to be careful what you're putting out into the world and kind of being able to regulate for yourself, because you never know nowadays with all this technology, what could happen in 25 years.
And there's no doubt, look, if you have a computer, it can be hacked in some way or another. That's one of my fears of buying a new car that are computerized. I've seen, well, they've been on TV shows anyhow, where they could stop somebody's car by hacking into their computer. It kills.
I forget. It's like the security system. It's the blue light thing. I forget the name of it, but it's like you talk to it. I think it's like All Star or something like that, where like you talk to it and you're like, oh man, I need help, like blah blah blah. But if you are in a high speed pursuit, they will also shut off your vehicle.
They can shut off your vehicle. Oh, I saw one where not only if you steal a car, not only shut off the vehicle and lock your doors and you cannot get out.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good idea. I mean, not that I'm going on any high speed pursuits anytime soon. Sometimes you're feeling a little lucky, Pooch,
Well, I'm not into hijacking cars.
I mean, I'll be driving driving fast sometimes, I'm not really a roller coaster guy, believe it or not. I am not with the fast rides or skydiving or any of that. That's not me.
Yeah, but what music people have to understand is, see, technology, everything in the world has a good side and a bad side.
Of course.
It's two sides of one thing, really, if you get into quantum mechanics and technical science part. Mm-hmm. It's like there's no good or bad or fast or slow or fat or thin unless you compare it to something else. Okay, right. So there's always, comparative, and which gets into people judging people and, waiting for somebody else to be successful and stuff like that. They're following somebody else. Why don't you be the best you could be? And, use that creativity of stopping a car into something you can do, creatively with your own music or your own life with film or any form of art.
So here we can switch again. You ready? This is something that's interesting that I've been coming across a lot too, is like producers working with artists and producers working with melodies have a peculiar way of working, because they're able to capitalize on a lot more than a normal production. I mean, what is the safest way for these producers to be able to protect themselves, or the best way, I should say?
Contracts. But first of all, let's put it this way. If I was a producer and I'm going to give out a track for whatever, whether I'm selling it or I'm leasing it, I hate the idea of leasing tracks, but that's another story for another day. But the point is, if you own your own record label, you're doing tracks. Whoever paid for the recording owns the recording, the track. So you could put it out through your record company, actually, to protect it. See, what my clients do, the way we work it is, you as a person, producer, doesn't license somebody to use it. Your record company, your company that you own, is going to license it to the other people. Meanwhile, the person will say, oh, I better be careful. I better not screw them. It's a company and they're having LLC above it or some kind of corporation or something like that. But I mean, just talking about producing, we can go for days and days and hours and years. But the point is for people to understand about, there's all different ways now that we're getting into tracks. Through the years, it's been 7, 8, I don't remember how many years. No, it might be more than that, where they started people doing tracks, and they're just tracks producers, and some of them become very famous. They do a track, they're given a ton of money. I'm not going to name names, but somebody who was working with one of my major friends who does tracks, and didn't want to give up any of the publishing or anything. You know, they didn't want the artist to get into publishing or any of this sort of thing. So what she did was pay the producer $75,000 in cash for a track, and that was it. But a lot of people would take $75,000 for a track.
I have no complaints there, Pooch. I mean, that's just one. You know, what I mean,
but people work up to that, you know. Yeah. But normally, just so people know, all right, let's talk about how producers get paid.
Perfect.
Now, producers on their own. Now, let's define producing. Producing, going by the old days, the old type producers before the tracks and this and that and all that stuff, the producers in the old days would take from the very beginning, picking the songs maybe for the artist, helping them write it, want to give them their songs so they get the publishing. It's all about the money and it's about publishing. And all the way through, they pick the engineer, maybe they pick the studio or use their own, you know, and all the way to the finished master, which is the final product ready to go out on the street. But nowadays, there's different levels of producers for different things, and this is the way I work it. Now, normally with producing, producers get paid normally one of three ways. The first way, let's look at one side. One side, they might get paid cash for the track, maybe, or cash for the one song, an album, an LP, an EP, or whatever, as an hour, the time in the studio, whatever you want to call it. That's the way on one side that they could be paid. 180 degrees. They might not get any money up front, but they get points on the back end. Points, folks, a lot of people ask, what's points? It's percentage points. And the normal percent for a producer is anywhere from 3 to 5 points, usually 5%. So what does that mean? 5% of the retail selling price or the licensing of the recording, you know, to a film or this or that. They would get 5%, okay? Now there's a middle thing, and successful people will get this, where they get an advance, that front money, and it's considered an advance. In other words, it does have to get paid back in a way, but they get points. But at least they know if nothing happened, they made some cash. And if it goes to points, after the expenses are paid, you know, they can, you know, after the advance is paid back, they'll make money on that end also. Mm-hmm. Now, let's look at tracks producers. Now, a lot of times with tracks producers, they'll sell or whatever you want to call it to somebody else, and their job stops there. Somebody, other engineer producer, takes the track, has somebody sing on it, mixes it, and the master and all that stuff. So what happens there? The way I handle it normally, Now, if the original track's producer put together a finished mix, so it's down to 2-track, where all that has to happen is the vocals put on top and stuff, and then the final and the mastering and all that stuff, I might give the first person 2 points and the finishing producer 2 points. Now, what happens sometimes, and let's say for one reason or the other, that the person recording doesn't like their mix. So if I was that person, I would say, yeah, give me your mix, but give me the stems also. That means each individual track, you know, each individual, the guitar track, the bass track, the snare drum track, the hi-hat track, you know, all these different tracks, and then they'll mix it where they want. At that point, that first track producer might get some cash, but maybe only gets 1 point because the other person's doing the real mix, you know, who's in charge of the mix. Now, let's differentiate engineer from producer. An engineer twiddles the knobs. The producer says, twiddle this knob, twiddle that knob.
Yeah.
They could be the same person. I mean, nowadays, a lot of people do the engineering and the producing. Matter of fact, it's crazy. What is the song? Who's the songwriter? Who's the arranger? And who's the producer? Going by old school, the songwriter is somebody who writes the lead melody and the words. The arranger is somebody that says, okay, the guitar's going to do this, drum's going to go this, we're going to go at this tempo, and et cetera, and it's going to play these notes, and it's going to work, et cetera, et cetera. And then the producer is the person who overall, a producer of the music is equal to a director of film. The director guides the whole process. Well, in music, it's the producer. They guide the whole process. But nowadays, I mean, I've done it. I sit in front of a computer workstation. I'm writing the song, arranging the song, and producing the song. You know, so where's the differentiation? And, you know, and then rightfully so, if the producer, a lot of people get into producing really to be the publisher and use their songs because the money's in the writing and publishing. Never forget that, folks. I'm not going to go into the whole thing of publishing now. It's a gigantic subject, and we will go into it, okay? But that's a whole show. Remember that. So, but, you know, yes, to me, if, especially in rap, where there might not be any melody, you know, because it's rap, if it's pure rap and there's no like choruses or singers and stuff, they should get half the writing because they did the music and somebody else did the words. So I want to get half the writing. Why not half the publishing? Yeah. I'll never forget, even back to the 70s, to my mentor, Gene McDaniels, who produced me back in the 70s, and he worked with major people, Gladys Knight and Roberta Flack back in the 70s and stuff. He says, Pooch, producing's my art. Publishing is my business. And here's a funny story. It's a true story, and he doesn't mind me saying it. He wrote one song called Feel Like Making Love that Roberta Flack did. Now, this is how the business works of music. Roberta Flack, yes, made money as the artist on that song, Feel Like Making Love to You. It was a very big song in the 70s. Okay. And the record company made money off the songs. But Gene, who wrote and published it, that song, just by 1990, 400 people had performed or recorded it. And this one song, I used to kid him about this, true story, this one song paid for his ex-wife an ex-house in Seattle, his ex-wife an ex-house in Beverly Hills, his ex-wife an ex-house. He made millions from one song.
Wow.
You know what I mean? That's where the money is. It's in writing and publishing, folks. Great. You know, it really is. Let's say, you know, everybody wants their songs really on broadcast radio besides the internet. In broadcast radio in the United States, the broadcast radio pays the songwriter and the publisher. They do not pay the artist or the record company. They've been fighting this for them since 1970 something with Frank Sinatra. They're still fighting it in the courts. They're trying to get broadcast radio to also pay, you know, the artists and record companies, whereas the the radio station saying, hey, we're promoting this stuff for you and stuff. The ironic part about it, and there's some sad parts about it, the ironic part about it is since we don't pay, the United States doesn't pay the artists at record companies, when your stuff in the United States is played in other countries, they're not paying our artists or record companies. And that's one of the reasons they want this done. What's really sad about the whole thing is we're one of 4 industrial countries, I'll use the word industrial countries loosely, out of hundreds of countries that does this, where they pay the songwriter and publisher, but they don't pay the record company and artist. The others are China, North Korea, and I think it's Iran. I'm pretty sure it's Iran.
Sense, honestly.
I mean, you know, folks, welcome to the music industry. And this is why we do this kind of a show, so you understand why and how everything works, okay? And then knowing the facts, you then could say, well, let's see how I can make money. Oh, just a quick note, speaking of other countries, I know I posted an article on, I think it was Facebook, on my education site. I have a bunch of sites. And about Iran is against heavy metal music. And this heavy metal band escaped from Iran and are given asylum, I think it was in Norway or someplace, because they were going to be each in jail for 15 years.
Wow.
Of the three
I love metal too. I mean, I grew up with metal. So
yeah, I mean, I love metal too. To me, the great thing about metal is, and by the way, metal is still very big. The great thing about metal is their albums were concept albums. You know what I mean? There was stories going on, things happening, and they had melodies and stuff like that. I mean, I like heavy metal. I like hard rock of any sort. Okay, that's just the way I am. But I mean, picture certain countries, you just can't do certain kinds of music, folks. But I mean, stopping heavy metal music, I mean, it's music, folks. I mean, you know, God, it's
crazy. I mean, they try
great thing about the U.S., you know, freedom of speech, you can do the music you want.
Exactly. So I think that brings us to a great end, Pooch. You want to lead us out with the old Pooch saying?
Tune in for the next episode.
There it is.
Bye-bye, people.
Thanks for watching. Tune in for the next episode.